Okay, so here we are. I was getting ready to kind of put this stove together and maybe sell it off. And I had this turn up. I hadn't realized this was this way. So let me explain what's happening here. This is the flap. This is the rod that goes through the flap. And the rod, let's see if we can get you. You can see there, right there. That's a spot weld. There's another spot weld here. And another spot weld here. So the way this works, when this was assembled, this rod would have been put in here and centered like that, and then would have been dropped in here like that, and the guy would have gone spot weld, spot weld, spot weld. And then the rod remains rigid and the flap moves around it. Okay, so here I've got the rod and the front flap bead blasted clean of all the crud and nastiness and everything. I have to do the case still. That'll take me some time. But I want to show you the... There you go. Now you can see the spot welds. These are the where the electrode touched. And the other side is where it was supposedly welded. Here, and can't even see that one. But that's where the big electrode on the spot welder touched. Wait. Quentin Tarantino, I am not. I've had to do this 4 times now. All these little problems. Okay, so if you're having to replace this rod, I measure it at, there we go, we got 0. I measure it at about 3 millimeters. For some reason it's slightly more than 3 millimeters. I don't know why, but it's pretty small. It's, you know, hundredths of a millimeter. And then we got 1/18.5 in English. So that helps you pick out a rod to replace this sucker with if you need to replace it. Mine was pretty solid under a little light coating of rust. So anyway, there it is. Now you know, little specs for you. Okay, so I got the bottom half the case. You can see pretty much initially bead blasted pretty well. Haven't done the top. I thought I'd go ahead, since I'm going to have to clean this up if I silver braze it, which I'm leaning towards now, so I'd go ahead and do all that work and then come back and touch up. So if you're like a lot of people, you don't have a bead blaster to do your bead blasting with, so what do? Use sandpaper. So if you're going to sand the case, you can get wet dry carbide paper. See? 400 grit. That's what I'd start with. I wouldn't go any lower than that. It'll be too hard to remove the scratches later. And then finish with 600 grit. Now you don't have to use complete sheets. You can use scissors to cut these up into smaller bits. Use it, fold them up, sand like crazy. And you can get your metal just as clean as you need it to be, which is spotlessly clean, by using sandpaper. You don't have to have a bead blaster. Okay, so here I have my little hearth set up with the flap in position. Let's see how that looks down here. Alright, that's what we're looking at right there. That's where, right in here, is where I'm going to be putting some flux and some silver brazing wire. I don't want to get too close to the ends because I don't want it to run into the joint here at either end. So probably from that mark to that mark, and then we'll go to town. It's a nice tight fit that I've got there. I bent the rod around a lot to make sure it was good and tight against the flap. Adjusted the flap some too. So I'm going to set all that up and then silver braid. You know, I wish I could make this as clear as possible. This is the best I can do right now because I need to focus on getting this right, not on creating a video. So if I block my view here, if I block your view, sorry. It's just the way it's going to be. flux is bubbling and evaporating. The salt comes out, mostly water, some alcohol mixed in. Alright, now we got dry. Start to apply some heat. Brazing roll was moving, so knock it back in position. Okay, saw the silver brazing go liquid. Call that good for right now. I might reapply some more later. Yeah, from what I can see here, it looks pretty good. And the big test. Yeah, okay, it still works. Good. Okay. I was concerned it would get into the hinge hole, so it didn't. That's good. Yeah. So there's one hinge. You can see it's soaked into the flap all along there, almost to the other hinge. And that black is just, you know, the flux. A lot of it dripped down here. That'll probably come off in the bead blasting.
You can remove that flux with hot water, very hot water, almost boiling, and a wire brush.
One stripped 111 box that's been repaired. You can see some traces of heating here. I'm not going to worry about it too much, but flap works good. There you go. You can see the silver brazing in there. And it makes a real nice repair that way. Okay, so this is how this turns out after repaint. We're going to zoom in and show that part right there. There you go. You can see that's actually right there. Yeah. You can see where the brazing is. It's been repainted and all is good now. How you can fix your hinge low tech, relatively low tech at your home using silver brazing. You can also do these hinges, these mounting points. I've done those also. They're also spot welded, but if they break off, silver brazing is your best route to go there. So, ready to go. Oh, also these too. You can silver braze those also too. Not everybody has a spot welder or a TIG welder, so low tech. Okay, people are going to ask me what color of paint, what kind of paint I'm using. I'm using Dupli-Color Perfect Match automotive paint. Automotive paint is a great paint to use with your stove. The original paint is just like automotive paint. It is not a heat resistant paint on any of these cases. You do not need heat resistant paint. The automotive paint is pretty doggone heat resistant if you think about your car having a hot engine just underneath an automobile, you know, hood. I mean, it takes a lot of heat just fine, and you don't need to spend a lot of money for heat resistant paint. That's just a foolish thing that people came up with. Anyway, this is the color I'm using here. It's called BGM. That's either a 0 or a O. I think it's a 0423 medium Maui blue metallic. Medium Maui blue metallic. And it's a pretty good match, not a perfect match, but it's a pretty good match for the original Optimus case color. And I went through about a can and a half to do that stove, but then I like to put a lot of coats on to make it good. So, that's the deal. And you can get this on Amazon. You can get it in your local automotive stores. Not a hard thing. You can special order it if you need to.